Hi guys, it's Matt at Matrix Moto Repairs. Sorry for the lack of content of late. I'm going to get on top of that and do a few more videos for you. Today we have a little CRF 50 in for a small service, and we're going to be checking the valve clearances, which is a little video that I wanted to do for you. Basically, if you've got pit bike, Honda Cub engine type stuff, this is the procedure to do your valve clearances. This is needed if you start having issues when it's not starting when it's cold and cutting out when it's hot, things like that. It could be down to your valve clearances haven't been checked and the gaps have actually closed up. So here we go. Here's the tools you're going to need. We have plug spanner, 16mm to remove the spark plug. We have 8mm socket to remove the flywheel cover. The valve tool, valve adjustment tool. If you don't have this, you can just use a pair of pliers. 9mm socket for the lock nut, and a set of feeler gauges. Okay, now things are a little bit tight on this and it's hard to see that well actually the adjustment, so I've just drawn a small little diagram here for you. Now this shows the setup basically, and what you're going to, this is the bit you've got to sort out, the clearance between the lock nut and the adjuster on the rocker arm and the top of the valve, which is this part sticking up here with what looks like a spring around it. Okay, that's just to give you that where it says valve clearance, that is where you're going to be inserting your one of your feeler gauges, whatever size you're going to need. Okay, so there's just a little diagram for you, just so you can see where we're actually putting the feeler gauge when we do it on the video. Okay guys, firstly we're going to remove this cover on this side. I've already removed the caps for the actual exposing the rocker arm to do the valve clearances, which I will show you in a second. 3 bolts on this cover. Okay, now if you look on top of the flywheel here, you can see F, which is your fire mark, and T, which is your top dead center mark. Now I've already removed the caps to expose the valves, okay, and I've removed the spark plug just to release, so that we're not building up compression while we're trying to turn the engine over. Now by hand you need to turn this anti-clockwise, okay, and at the same time be looking at this is your inlet valve. Okay, so we'll turn the engine over anti-clockwise, remember, until this valve goes down. Okay, you can see it going down and coming back up again. Now once you're at the point that that's come back up, move back over to the flywheel. You can see a tiny little notch cut out here of the casing, and we'll roll the flywheel round. There's the fire point and there's top dead center mark, so we line that up roughly with the little notch that's out of there. It may roll slightly past it, but that's not massively critical as long as it is close to that point. Okay, now you need the feeler gauges. Obviously whatever model your bike is, you need to find out from the manufacturer what they recommend is the correct gap for your clearances. Okay, this is a Honda based like Cub 50 Cub 90 engine. This is the same procedure on pit bikes and stuff like that. The only thing you may find different is you may have covers with 2 or 3 screws rather than a cover like this with a 17mm spanner. So that's pretty much the only difference you're going to notice, but the rest of the procedure is the same. Now it's a little bit tricky to show you this because it is a bit tight, but if you can see in here, this arm, this little arm, we need the gap between the bottom of this screw and the top of the valve to be whatever the manufacturer recommends, which, so we need to try and get the feeler gauge in the gap. Now that feeler gauge has just gone under there and it is actually a perfect fit. Now you will find if you have got running issues, more often than not the exhaust valve has lost its gap and it's being held open slightly constantly, which means that you're going to have trouble starting it, and also when it's hot it may cut out a lot and things like that. But this is pretty much the procedure to do it. This is on both valves. Some manufacturers recommend the same clearance on both valves. Some recommend a larger clearance on the exhaust valve than the inlet. But okay, so the feeler gauge is under there. This is actually correct gap on here, but if you do need to adjust it, you would loosen this lock nut with a spanner, and then this little square headed piece you would turn with the little tool or a pair of pliers. Once the lock nut's released, that should turn quite easily, and then you need to be able to fit the feeler gauge in there, and it should be a snug fit, not like so tight that you've got to really pull on it to get it out, in and out. You should just pull in and out smoothly with a slight resistance. Okay, so once you're happy with it, you lock the lock nut off, and then you can remove it and basically just screw your cap back on. And like I say, this is the same procedure for the exhaust valve as well. The exhaust valve's a little bit more awkward to get to on this particular bike, but there you go. Then obviously plug back in, everything tighten back up, the cover back on, and you're good to go. You've set your valve clearances.